In the fall, a sneaky creature might invade your house. Better hope it's not a mouse. Hello, friends. This is J.A. Rollins, author of the 251 A JassOdyssey series. Usually I talk about jazz because it's a serious topic to me, but sometimes you must take a break and look at the lighter side of life. Today, I'm going to share with you a story, and no, it's not about jazz. This is a temporary break from one of my favorite musical forms. Even the song that I use as the background music for the story has nothing to do with jazz. This story is about a dream that I had a few nights ago. Like most of you, when I go to sleep at night, I often dream. Some of those dreams are vivid, pleasant, and satisfying enough to make me not want to wake up. In contrast, other dreams are absolute nightmares. They're downright scary and frightening, and I'm glad that I wake up from them. Ordinarily, when I have a dream, it dissipates quickly, like the vapors of menthol waffling in the air, leaving no evidence that it ever existed. But because of the disturbing nature of this one, it hung around, allowing me to put pen to paper. As far as that nocturnal fantasy that I had, whether or not it's a dream or nightmare, I'll let you be the judge of that. But before talking about the dream, let me explain what might have brought it on. A few years ago, I bought a thumb drive. It was small, but it had a lot of memory. I stored all kinds of material in that portable device, including music, text files, photos, graphic illustrations, and all sorts of other stuff that I wanted to save just in case I had a computer hard drive crash. But recently I lost it. I've searched high and low throughout the house for that drive, but I just can't seem to find it. Now, back to the dream. In the dream, it was a fall afternoon, and I was alone at home sitting at my kitchen table. I looked out my window and noticed that the trees on my property were wearing their autumn leaves, which were red, brown, yellow, and gold. There were also a few green leaves on the trees. The red leaves reminded me of my missing thumb drive because it was the same color. Sitting on the table was a large round cake and a large handled knife lying next to it. The cake was peculiar in color because it had black icing on it. It wasn't cocoa like chocolate, nor was it white like snow, nor was it dark brown like devil's food cake. It was black. Along the periphery of the cake was white trim. Though it looked delicious, I continued to train my eyes on the window. Out of nowhere, I heard a strange noise. I didn't know what it was, but the cake moved slowly as I looked at the table. I thought that maybe my eyes weren't seeing clearly or were playing tricks on me, so I adjusted my glasses. I looked out the window again, and out of the corner of my eyes, I saw the cake slowly inching its way away from me. When I again looked at the cake, it stopped. Was I hallucinating, I thought? Cakes don't move, no matter what color they are. I again looked out the window, then quickly back at the table, and as I did, the cake again moved forward. This time, I was sure that the pastry was moving. As I stood up to confirm my findings, the cake quickly moved across the table toward the edge. I approached it, and as I did, the cake leaped from the table and onto the black and white checkerboard floor. I was in disbelief at what I was seeing. When I got to the end of the table, the cake was gone, but in its place was a large black mouse lying on one of the black squares on the floor as if to camouflage its color. I was shocked at what I saw. The rodent had a large squiggly tail, and on its nose were whiskers. It catapulted its way across the surface like the round metal balls on a pinball machine, but only using the black tiles. Its coat was razor sharp like that of the mineral stibnite. Its eyes were large, round, and stoic, as if transfixed on trying to find a place to flee across the checkerboard floor. As it scurried about the surface, moving aimlessly, it made a squeaky mouse sound. Its motions were like the moves of a black bishop in the game of chess. I didn't know what to make of it. I quickly grabbed the knife from the table and pursued it. I chased it as it zigzagged across the floor, moving haphazardly. I used the knife and tried to stab it, but as I tried to thrust the tip of the object into the furry creature, it seemed to be one step ahead of me and the metal blade. Finally, it made a beeline toward the wall, and as it did, something miraculous happened. A small half-moon-shaped opening occurred at the juncture between the floor and the wall. It looked like those mouse holes that you might see in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon featuring Jinx the cat along with Pixie and Dixie, his mouse nemesis. It started small, but got bigger as the mouse got closer and closer. When it finally got to the spot, the animal ran inside and, in a mouse voice, started to laugh at me as if it was out of danger. When I got to the opening, I stood at the hole for a moment, wondering what was going on, as the mouse's eyes lit up like headlights on a car. Confused by the situation, I got down on all fours and peered inside the opening. In the background, I saw the mouse peering at me with its big eyes. Along with the mouse were other rodents the same size, and their eyes looked just as menacing. There was even one of its bigger cousins, a rat. It seemed as though the mouse, which was once a cake, was taunting me, trying to get me to continue my pursuit of it. But the hole was not big enough for me to fit inside. The mouse moved out of sight for a moment, then reappeared. But this time, it appeared to be pulling something. It was round and long. As I looked more closely at the object, I realized that it was the missing thumb drive. There it is, I finally thought, my lost memory stick. The mouse again seemed to tempt me as it beckoned me to continue my pursuit. It again laughed at me, but this time, the other mice joined in the chorus. You would think that being in a dream, the hole would immediately get larger and allow me to enter the mouse space, but it didn't. Feeling frustrated by the mouse, and in an attempt to grab the lost object, I stuck my hand in the hole. But the mouse pulled it back just enough for me not to reach it. I continued to move my hand inside the opening, and the mouse continued to pull the object back. I put in my wrist, my arm, my elbow, and eventually my entire shoulder was in the hole as the mice's laughter in unison got louder and louder. As I moved my extremity further and further into the hole, the mouse moved the thumb drive further and further back beyond my grasp. I was up to my armpits. While this was happening, I looked over my opposite shoulder and noticed the rat pulling the knife that I had used earlier to stab at the cake mouse. He disappeared into another small hole adjacent to me, with the knife in tow. Also, as this was happening, I didn't notice that the size of the opening in the wall was getting smaller and smaller. As the opening continued to shrink, I continued to hear not only the original mouse laughing at me, but all the other mice in the mouse space joined in the merriment. Finally, the opening was the exact size of my shoulder, and it prevented me from moving. I couldn't move my arm forward, nor could I pull it back. I squirmed, trying to extricate my extremity. I couldn't move. I was pinned down. It was then that I realized that a trap had been set for me, and my arm was the bait for the mice. I momentarily stopped my struggling. As I did, the laughter on the other side of the wall stopped. Then it was replaced by the moan of a low groan, which was accompanied by the guttural sound of smacking lips. "What's that?" I thought, as I listened more intently. But I figured it out immediately as I felt the pinprick gnawing of the rodent's teeth as it ate into the flesh of my fingers and hands. It was as if they were feasting on cheddar, Swiss, Asiago, or some American-made processed product that could be found at your local grocery store. Then I felt a painful, heavy weight fall across my arm. The pain was so intense that it instinctively woke me from my sleep. Is this how a rodent feels when the snap of a mousetrap comes crashing down on its torso? I thought. Nightmare or not, I was able to extract myself from the horrid dream, though in the dream my arm was not as lucky. Am I wrong for trying to kill the creature? After all, it's a pest, no matter what PETA says. What alternatives exist to get rid of the varmint? Should I let it endure a slow bleeding death from a derivative from the sweet clover plant? Be crushed in the jaws of a snapping trap? Or let a cat have its way with it? You tell me. As I jumped up from my bed, two thoughts popped into my head. I'll never eat any pastry with a black coating, and that thumb drive is still around here someplace. But when it comes to rodents and them living in my house, like a famous cartoon character once said, I hate Mises to pieces.